You're welcome to the UNU-INWEH public event tagged The Science Talks. I am your host, Professor Grace Oluwasonya. For today's event, that our speakers are Dr. Miriam ACZEL and Dr. Phillippe PHANIVONG. But before presenting our speakers, let me, inform you that after the presentation, there will be opportunity for questions and comments. So please use the chat box to drop your questions and your comments. We'll pick it up after that. Without taking much of our time, Dr. Miriam ACZEL is a research fellow with United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health. She specializes on sustainability, transition, and justice. Dr. Phillippe is a research fellow with the California Institute for Energy and Environment at the University of California, Berkeley, United States of America. So we will be hearing from the two of them on community clean energy, lessons from the Oakland EcoBlock in California, USA. So thank you. Let's jump right to.
So we're going to talk today about a renewable energy project, the Oakland EcoBlock. So this is a project that is based in Oakland, California, and it really takes a village. So we're going to talk a bit about the people behind the project, and I'm going to focus on the community aspects of the project. So Phillippe will talk a little bit about the origin story of the block, but we think that the right scale for retrofitting a block is the neighborhood block level. We think anthropologically and sociologically we evolved in the size of villages, and too large a scale, global scale, is too abstract or too large, and retrofitting homes and renewable energy on an individual or family level is too time-consuming and too small a scale. So our working hypothesis is that there's a sweet spot of this neighborhood block that really leverages economies of scale. In terms of the community building technologies that the project is based on, so the project, the Oakland EcoBlock, is a zero net energy neighborhood retrofit. Like I said, we're working on the hypothesis that there's a sweet scale, a neighborhood sweet spot, retrofitting on a community level. We're currently in phase 2. The project is funded by the California Energy Commission, and the project primary investigator is Dr. Therese Peffer. The unique aspects of this project, it's a retrofit of an older housing stock, which combines energy efficiency with electrification, water efficiency, an electric vehicle car share, and given funding, a solar microgrid. And we have a unique combination of community financing and community ownership, which is managed through a nonprofit association with fees. So like I said, I'm going to talk a bit about the community aspects of the project, and then we will go back and discuss some of the other aspects. Like I said, this project takes a village, and really at the center of it is the local community. So in terms of the community building technologies, one of the key aspects is water and water retrofitting. We hosted a laundry to landscape irrigation workshop. This is something that really helps strengthen community, and it's kind of a raising the barn roof aspect. The water aspect also include block level stormwater mitigation. The community abuts a creek at the end of the block, so this is something that's really important, in addition to sidewalk landscaping and urban beautification, as well as tree planting. A second aspect is shared mobility. We've surveyed the block several times, and a majority of block respondents has said that they would get rid of a second car if they had access to a shared electric vehicle. And then we're also exploring the opportunity for other e-mobility projects in the future, in addition to a curbside EV charger with the opportunity to add additional EV chargers in the future. And then in terms of the community microgrid, this is something that the local utility, Pacific Gas and Electric, would own and operate all of the overhead wires and poles and transformers. And importantly here, not all the houses need to join. So how did we do this? In 2019, we opened up a notice of opportunity to have blocks self-select. We received 12 responses from various blocks. And then the block that was finally chosen, we had a list of characteristics that we were looking for. And one of the things that was really important was a block with some sort of pre-existing level of cohesion. This was a block that already had annual birthday parties for the block. They tend to have a degree of community and working together. We hired a community engagement liaison. This is a Oakland native woman of color who's been really instrumental both in navigating the city and all of the kind of relationships and challenges that come with working with the city of Oakland, and really importantly, knows the community and really has community trust. We've had a combination of in-person and Zoom meetings, and these continued throughout COVID. And in addition, in terms of touch points, we have a private web page where the block members can log on and access information about these complicated renewable technologies. And we've also developed a community newsletter and then a public-facing blog. In terms of building commitment for the project, this was something that was particularly interesting because a lot of these technologies, renewable energy technologies, their benefits and impact are well understood, but it's really the community aspects that are in some senses the most challenging and the most interesting and really quite different from location to location. And so I think some of the key lessons here, there are 6 primary languages spoken on the block. So being able to communicate with people and navigating the cultural and language diversity. This is a block that has really all different walks of life and was really chosen for its high level of socioeconomic diversity, language diversity, age diversity, and other aspects as well. And then the third prong to our communication and outreach is really the public. We're using this as a demonstration opportunity to engage and inform the public about these renewable technologies. So we've launched an EcoBlock website, and we have a blog where we try to share important updates about the project, as well as explaining how these renewable technologies work. So like I said, we continue to have meetings throughout COVID. Here you can see some of our team members speaking to block members about the different technologies. And then one of the more recent accomplishments is the association formation. There were 5 neighbors that stepped up to take leadership. And so this is really the kind of main point of contact with the research team. And with the help of a cooperative lawyer, we developed the bylaws and membership agreement. And these are all going to be published in a guidebook to really share templates for how to create a community-based renewable energy and renewable resources project like this with community control. These are some examples of our monthly newsletter that goes to the block members. A lot of really beautiful and engaging graphics. We see here that one of the key things is kind of sharing these technologies with the community and enabling people to go neighbor to neighbor. There's really a lot of power in being able to explain these different technologies, from heat pump water heaters to utility poles. And then in terms of broader community outreach, like I said, we have a blog where we think it's really important to both share updates about the project, as well as provide helpful information about these renewable technologies. And there's a QR code there if you want to stay updated about the project. This is our bi-monthly digest of the articles from the blog. We recently had we're featured on a podcast, KQED's Sold Out, and you can find the link for the podcast there. And it's a really great opportunity to kind of hear a little bit more about the people behind the project, the community members, and some of the challenges that they faced in joining the project. So in terms of lessons learned for community engagement, it's really critical to set aside a good budget for working with the community, and also ensuring trust and building trust and openness and communication throughout all stages. Particularly important is people speak a different language, really meeting people where they're at, providing interpretation and translation, especially of things like complicated legal documents. And then recognizing the importance of the neighbor effect, that these technologies are contagious regardless of income. Solar energy grows in clusters. And so we're really trying to leverage the power of the neighbor effect here. Just to talk a little bit about some of the economies of scale that we've been looking at leveraging. One of the reasons why we think this is such an important solution is because this alleviates what's known as the half-day problem. So for contractors who are going to do updates on a home, this leads to fewer truck rolls. They can go and target all of the same houses on the block. There's also the potential for bulk purchase of appliances and heat pumps. And this is really a way of leveraging both the social economies of scale as well as economical economies of scale. And then, like I mentioned, really critical here is the neighbor peer effect. We've seen that solar adoption is contagious regardless of income, and these technologies can be complicated to understand. So neighbors as a trusted source of information can really help scale up these adoption of these renewable technologies. In terms of the problem, we can see here that the block is really located in what's classed as a disadvantaged community. So we're really trying to target an area where it has highest levels of pollution, as well as water contamination, groundwater contamination. And so you can see here the location of where the block is really in a pocket that has high risk of all different types of socioeconomic and environmental impacts. And so the idea is really that if we can use this model for scaling up renewable technologies and solar adoption, combining water resource efficiency, renewable electric vehicle usage, and community solar, we can leverage the power of the neighbor effect and use this as a model. There's no one size fits all. This is really something that every community will be different, but we're putting together a portfolio of technologies designed to enable communities to take power into their own hands and build these sustainable communities together. And I think with that, I will open it up to question and answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Miriam. The first thing that jumps to mind is who initiated the project? Is it top down or is it bottom up? Is it the community that says, oh, we want to adopt renewable energy, or how is the project initiated?
So the project was originally started in 2005 by Professor Harrison Fraker out of UC Berkeley School of Architecture. And the idea was really based around systems thinking, whole systems thinking. And so this was back in 2005, and the idea was to create more efficient communities from the bottom up. So the idea was sort of born out of the research community, but then in terms of the implementation and the current block, like I mentioned, this was through a competitive process where we opened up in 2019 to get blocks to self-select. And I think that's really, you touch on one of the really key points here is the bottom-up nature of the project and the importance of having community engagement at all stages and having a block that has self-selected and really actively wanted to be part of the project. So it is sort of a combination of both. And I think you have pretty interesting cultural aspects between a project that's designed as a research project and something that, when you're working with a real community and real people and the unforeseen challenges that you get. And so really learning how to listen, not lecture, how to work together with the community and build more from a bottom-up perspective.
Okay, thank you. And another thing, for me is, if I cite the example of this shared electric vehicle, that you mentioned, in that scenario, so how do they share the bill?
This is a really good question. I think this is also, in terms of the electric vehicle, one of the big challenges has been insurance, and that's also something with the community association. The association has membership fees, and this is the way some of the costs for the renewable energy are going to be recuperated as well. So I think for the electric vehicle charges, this is something that would be shared by the users. And as the fees would be levied through the association that's governed by this 5-block member board.
Okay. So the member board is it a volunteer role or are they being paid?
Yes, these are members that stepped up and are, this is a volunteer role that they're committed to representing the block and
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the funding, I'm just trying to, in my head round, the logistic, the funding and all that. So the idea started from the research community. They sought for funding, for it, and they got funded. So the retrofitting, the appliances, so the community members who jumps on board, so is the project that pays for the retrofitting appliances, or they'll still have to pay back or pay for it one way or the other?
In terms of the financing model, we're leveraging a couple of different. I was just going to see if don't think this is. This was one of the initial financial analyses for how the household monthly bills. The idea was first just as a commitment to the block members, they won't be paying any more. The bills should go down after this, but ultimately, as you can see from the graphic here, the association fees are the costs are distributed through association fees that are kind of the home-based retrofits are going to be owned by the homeowners, and the resources that are generated from the microgrid are owned by the community. And the idea is that these will be paid through on-bill financing with the local utility. So we've come with an agreement that the local utility will maintain the poles and wires, and that sort of simplifies things. This is something that could be quite different in a different block. It might be, for a different type of community that has the funding or financing to pay for the upgrades themselves. there might be an entirely different model. But this is a model that for us is in this initial EcoBlock we're piloting, where you have a combination of homeowners and renters. So it's really the association that's the vehicle that enables both the generation of the revenue to be able to maintain the resources, and also an equitable and fair way of enabling people to benefit from the renewable energy without having to pay a heavy burden for the upgrade costs.
Thank you. And for everyone, the Q&A session is open. Please feel free to type your questions in, then we'll take the question. The presenters will take the question,
Yeah, I have a question. So thank you, Miriam. So one question is like, when you organize this EcoBlock on the community, so it is when the people are on grid, still you can manage it when they are, or it is more appropriate for people living in the off-grid location?
It's a really good question. So in this context, these are people who are connected to the grid. But in California, I mean, we've seen with increasing risk of wildfire, and here when earthquakes happen, it's the natural gas lines that rupture, and those cause fires. So the idea here is really bringing a community together. This is a community that is at highest risk for what's called PSPS, Planned Public Safety Power Outages. So this is in situations of high wildfire risk. The utilities will intentionally de-energize the electricity lines. So it's a community that, and studies have shown that it's communities of color and lower socioeconomic status who have the greatest risk for the longest power outages. And so this is really a way of bringing a community together to empower them to help transition off natural gas onto renewable energy, currently connected to the grid. So that's where there's sort of a challenge to ensure that their costs don't go up, but rather this is promoting resilience in the case of extreme weather, wildfires, and really ensuring that if there is a situation where the main grid, I think there's a schematic here that shows. So in a case where the utility has de-energized the electrical lines, you can see that there's a shared battery, so the connected houses would be able to continue having power. And this is something that, importantly, not all the houses need to join. And so we think that in a situation where, if the main grid has been de-energized, non-participating homes would be disconnected. We assume that their neighbors would probably let them come over and charge their phones, but that's really one of the important things, that not all the homes here need to join to be able to create this connected grid.
So so you can start with a small number of families or household joining, and then it can be growing over time with the new member coming in.
Yeah, so with this first, this is really, the EcoBlock 1. So we currently have, I think, around 25 participating units. And I think the idea is that you really could snowball up. We're not sure, currently the way the association is designed with the members who have joined, they've signed association bylaws and have agreed to participate. But I think, yeah, to your point, this is something that would work really well with scaling up.
Okay, so that is a model that still needs to be tested or more research on that part, how to scale it up because when you scale up, it depends on if all the participating households are concentrated especially in a contiguous location, your cost of creating the microgrid will be less than it is more spreading. So that might something also you can think of.
Yeah, I think the question of scaling up is really, I mean, that's kind of the next question. And what does an EcoBlock look like? You know, and here in Oakland, California, it's a horizontal neighborhood block, but maybe in another context, it could be a vertical block. I think really this model is designed to be adaptable and flexible and not a one size fits all, but really something that can be rolled out to communities everywhere. And I think that's what we're looking at next is, you know, after sort of piloting this first project and really focusing on what are all the lessons learned, what are the challenges that we've faced, what are things that could be done differently, and how could this be improved and scaled up more rapidly so that we can get eco blocks, whatever that looks like, in whatever community everywhere.
So what are some most positive lessons that you have learned from the participants? And what are some challenges that you find from the current block?
I think one of the big challenges is the financial aspect. Like I said, we're currently we're looking for funding for the microgrid. This is something that there have been, both because COVID really quite complicated things, and you know, we continue to have meetings with the block, but the costs were quite different, supply chain interruptions, all of the sort of real world challenges that are, even the ones that are you know, the most expected, have really led to complications with the costs in terms of navigating something with a local utility where this really hasn't been done before. This is both the first, to our knowledge, demonstration of a project like this that's working with the local utility, using their poles and wires, and has a community-based association that's governing the management of the resources. So the novelty of it means that it's really complex legally, that there aren't precedents for this, and that leads to increasing costs and challenges. So I think that's kind of one of the big challenges, is because this is a first, sort of charting that path. In terms of lessons learned and successes, I think it's really been the response of people, and I think hearing other communities say, how do we do this, and sort of seeing how the approach might be very different, and you know, might be different languages spoken, different challenges, different climate. But I think really seeing the excitement around this, and the neighbor to neighbor sharing of information, and really kind of teaching each other about these different technologies. I think that's something that for me has been really exciting and inspiring, is learning about the different technologies from the perspective of designing, you know, articles that are meant to be engaging and interesting for the block, as well as for the research community, as well as for, you know, other neighborhoods that might be looking at implementing something similar.
Thank you. Over to Grace.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Another follow-up question. Have you tried to self-own, retrofitting and communal retrofitting? You know, in other words, individual households, you know, would have control, I presume, over their own resources, and all that. So if you put self-based, self-sponsored retrofitting versus communal, what do you think, will be the differences or the advantages or the cost benefit, over each other? Just your thoughts.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't quite.
Okay. Let me situate the question like this. In water supply management, we have communal water sources, we have public water sources, public infrastructure, the one that the government control, like utilities, and all that. But another type is self-supply, in which individual households can just drill their own borehole, so they're in control of their water assets, they have charge over that and all. So I'm trying to capture a similar scenario in this retrofitting business, so individual households can say, okay, maybe I want to manage my own renewable energy, on my own without it necessarily being a communal one. So I just want to hear your thoughts. So if you put self-based retrofitting with communal retrofitting, how do you think this will play out given your experience?
That's a really great question. And I think with this project, the home-based retrofits are going to be owned by, in the case of somebody who owns their home, they will own the whatever's inside their home, and it's the communal resources. And I think that really enables like the previous primary investigator, Sasha von Meyer, used to say, it's kind of like the wheel of cheese, where you pull your neighbors together to afford something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, and then everybody gets a slice of cheese. So with something like with the energy that you don't need to, it really works well for something that can be scaled up. At the same time, for somebody who, like you said, if they want to be able to own their resources or they want to have greater control, it is a model that works well for that. And I think in this case, what was interesting was when sort of working with the board in terms of how the association fees are going to be levied, who's going to pay what. One of the initial thoughts was, well, everybody should be paying the same thing. And so something that's equal is not necessarily equitable, particularly in a community where you have such a wide range of
people.
And so I think, to your point of similar to a water management system, where there are some aspects that are better managed by the community and other aspects that might be better managed on a home level, the home-based technologies really are going to be owned by the homeowners, but I think a different model could be everybody having their own solar panels or their own battery. And I think it really could take on a wide range of different forms based on what the specific needs of the community are and whether people want to have more control individually or as a community. And I think this also works for the management system as well. I mean, there are some situations where a community might say, we want to have we want to have a third-party manager. We want to have the utility manage this. And there are other situations where I think there could be a need or desire for much more hands-on or individual control over not just the home resources, but the electricity generated as well.
It's okay. I hear you. I hear you. Martin, any more thoughts from you?
No, I'm good. So we don't see any questions from audience.
And I see Phillippe is also on via the Q&A. So if anyone wants to pose any questions for him, and again, my apologies for.
I guess that's it from me too. So let me say a big thank you to you, Dr. Miriam. You really handled more than you planned for, today. Apologies on our side. We'll keep getting better, with this, and it's an important, topic to see how. The interesting thing for me is how it started with the research community, and you can see it benefiting society's needs, society's concern, pretty much transferring what's in our head, our ideas as scientists, real into the real world, application. And that's one of the things we want to promote with this science talk. That the scientific community are not just there, solving abstract issues. We're actually here resolving real life challenges, and seeing how to better, the society, better our community, and giving everyone a, improved lived life, lived experiences, So on that note, we say thank you to everyone who had joined. Thank you to the technical team. Thank you to Dr. Phillippe too. We hope that you'll be able to do a comeback and you'll be able to, speak freely too on your own aspects with this project. So once again, thank you. Dr. Miriam, Dr. Phillippe, thank you to Martin, and thank you to everyone for participating in today's Science Talk. So see you next week. Science Talks. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. And please do feel free to reach out with any questions.